are going in there because we need this.
Monsters Incorporated, released in 2001, has gone on to be one of the biggest Pixar movies of all time. The concept of a world populated by monsters sounded really interesting, and the end result gave us, in my opinion at least, one of my personal favorite movies ever made. Long before they had a prequel movie and a TV show many years after the fact, following its success was a series of merchandise, as par for the course for any movie of this era, including, yes, video games. Today's game in question, Monsters Inc. Scream Team. Developed by Artificial Mind and Movement and released for the PS1 and PC. There's also another port of this game, and I promise I'm not forgetting it for the record. For now though, let's talk about what we got. This might sound surprising given my track record of licensed games, but what we have here is actually a very solid package with open world 3D collectathon environments that were not uncommon for games of this time. It's one of those games that perfectly defines the phrase simple but effective, as in it's so simple that anyone with enough skill could breeze through it with virtually no effort. But it's so effective in that everything the game has to offer works out really well in its favor. On the topic of simplicity, the story for this game is as follows. James P. Sullivan and Mike Wazowski are recruited to a private training ground where they go to become top scarers of Monsters Inc. Strangely enough, this is supposedly set right before the events of the movie, about 10 years before Monsters University. Oops. And I guess here is where I talk about the presentation. While it's fine for 2001 standards, there is no overlooking the fact that this game still looks rather choppy in several areas. At best, the characters look ridiculously silly, and at worst, yikes. Granted, I'll still take this any day of the week over their PS2 port, and here's where I removed the pin I laid earlier. As well as PS1 and PC, this was also released for the PS2 under the name Scare Island, though for some reason this was only released in Europe, and outside of some new animation work on Mike and Sully, it's basically the same game on much better hardware. Unfortunately, the character models somehow look even worse despite the upgrade. Like, we have reached uncanny levels of jarring, going from the 5th gen software to
Hey, I'm the monster!
this. Quickly getting back on track, let's dive right into the gameplay. You play as either Mike or Sully, and the mechanics boil down to the standard platforming fare. Jumping, double jumping, attacking things, the whole 9 yards. The real aim of the game comes in scaring these robotic kid stand-ins called nerves, and you do so by mashing the buttons accordingly to get the job done. Before you can even do that, however, you'll need to collect enough canisters of ooze to fill this meter shown on the screen. The more ooze you have, the more colored nerves you can scare, and in turn, the more buttons you have to mash to scare them all. From blue requiring 1 button sequence to red asking for 5. You learn everything in this big tutorial stage, and after that, you're free to explore the different sections of Scare Island. You start off with the urban stages, and as you progress, you unlock the other areas surrounding the hub. The game has 3 sections in total: urban, desert, and Arctic levels. And interestingly, they all feel distinct and unique, while all of them tied to their specific theme. The urban stages, for instance, see us going through a city park in one stage, Sunset Docks on the other, a stroll through downtown city at night, and even a Chinese marketplace. The desert stages consist of some pyramids, a tomb with secrets within, an island oasis, and a sphinx with trials to explore. Even the Arctic stages see some interesting things going on with a sugar shack, hot springs, an iceberg castle, and a ski resort. They all allow you to explore the open world environments, collecting ooze and scaring nerves, and once in a while there'll be some puzzle solving in the mix. Though they're more or less memory games for the most part, so not that hard to remember. The main objective is to obtain 3 medals for every stage. Bronze is earned by scaring 5 nerves, you get silver for collecting 10 Monsters Inc. tokens in that level, and gold is for scaring all 8 nerves in a stage. While we're talking about scaring, many of the character animations for Mike and Sully are highlighted right here. Even with the limited hardware, there's still a clear sense of personality through their scares alone, especially when you pull off a finishing move. My favorites being what's highlighted on screen. Some of these are standard stuff, some I feel are too Sully even for the likes of Silly, and then there's this. Truly terrifying. Throughout the game, you'll see these items scattered throughout stages that, at first glance, you can't even use just yet. Upon collecting bronze medals, you'll gain access to these items as you go along. In order, you unlock the trampolines for the first set of bronze medals, followed by the speed boost arrows in the desert stages, and these giant logic-defying atoms that the games refer to as fling shots. Alright, let's go with it. If you want the silver and gold medals, you'll be needing these power-ups to finish every stage. While this does mean replaying stages you've already cleared, it's kinda worth it to see where these new items take you. The best part is when you get to explore entirely new areas thanks to the trampoline in the city park or dashing your way into the ancient pyramids. That's really cool and makes the return trips worth the trouble. At the end of it though, it shouldn't really be that hard to get every single medal in this game once you know what to do. What's weird to me is that earlier on they state you go through 15 stages, yet you only have 12 to select in the hub. So what happened to the Oh, I guess it's time to talk about these now. So after you get all the bronze medals on each section, you'll also be up against Randall in a race down the slope. You also need to make sure you collect enough tokens on the way to the finish line to secure the win, which is not that hard to do, but I think this is where the most challenging aspect of the game comes in, especially in the Arctic race when Randall decides to pull a nitrous oxide at the start. Hilariously, you can easily do what I did and be in a good enough position to push Randall right off the map. I don't know how or why you're able to do this, but it's nice to know that this is a thing. And if that's not enough for you, you can also smack him around in the hub because, sure, what's stopping you?
Fuck you!
And that's pretty much the entirety of Monsters Inc. Scream Team. Not a lot going on for it, but for what it's worth, it's a really good time all in all. You can easily beat it in about 2 hours time, but if you like open world collectathons, I guess it wouldn't be any harm in giving this a shot. If you can find a copy, go nuts. Also, the soundtrack is some of the best I have ever heard in any licensed game. Just thought I'd mention that up front so I don't forget. Anyway, hopefully this will suffice for what's essentially a short notice video for Spooky Month. I've had this game on my mind for a while and I wanted to look into it just for the fun of it. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Miss Dan signing out, and in closing, I am so sorry for all the folks in Europe that had to grow up with this port. Some I feel are too sully even for the likes of Silly. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna keep that in.